Here we go. All right. Welcome back to the Roadmap to Retirement podcast.
Welcome to Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neri, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement.
Colin Miller, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're one of those really common names. How many Colin Millers are there out there?
My legal first name is actually Joseph. So Joe Miller versus Colin Miller, much less common, but there's a lot of us. Colin's my middle name. I've always gone by it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's off topic. We'll get back to the one here. So we're here today to talk about Medicare. You are the Medicare guy. I guess I'll let you give your own introduction, but how did you get into doing what you do?
Yeah. Out of college, I was in the financial services business, primarily life insurance sales, and really tough business, but I was there for about 3 years. A client had asked me about his Medicare package that his employer was providing. And long story short, it was one of those things where the company thinks they're giving their retirees a great benefit, but when we actually uncovered what it was, a very tight network plan, meaning in this coverage, he couldn't use all the doctors that he wanted to go to. High out-of-pocket exposure, meaning he could get walloped with some medical bills if he had a medical issue. And for that type of coverage, very expensive. Now, we're never going to just look at premiums to say this is the best plan or the worst plan, but for that coverage, very expensive. So he had decided to opt out of the retiree Medicare package and get what's called traditional Medicare, where he can see any doctors that he wants, very low out-of-pocket costs, and even save a little bit of money in premiums. So he referred me into the HR department of this one company, and we started unwinding that package for the retirees. The company instead gave their retirees a stipend to go out and just purchase like the traditional Medicare package with the Medicare supplement plan. So it worked out really well for them, and those retirees were then referring me to friends and family members, and my phone was ringing for Medicare planning much more than it was for life insurance sales. So I inadvertently built up a book of Medicare business, and after about a year of doing that, kind of as a side hustle, I left the company and started Medicare Plan Partners.
Okay, that's a cool organic story. I think to your point about the phone actually ringing for Medicare, nobody ever wants to buy life insurance. They only do it if you're like reminding them constantly about how screwed their family is if they die. And then eventually out of guilt, they're like, okay, we'll sign the thing and be in the cup.
Yeah, and to that point too, as an advisor, it's a great service to offer as an add-on to what you're already doing, because it is like people really want like Medicare planning with an advisor style, concierge feel, someone that will show them all of their options, help them enroll in Medicare with the government. So much needed service. And as an advisor, it can help to enhance your practice.
Yeah. So this advisor has no interest in doing that, which is why you're here. So
Yeah.
I would say that, and we were talking about this before we started recording, but like, I think I know way more about Medicare than the average person, just in default being in this business. I talk to a lot of people, but I'm still not an expert. There are like things that I don't know or understand. I think I know enough to be dangerous. This is why I lean on people like you, because I get a ton of questions from clients about it. So I thought maybe we'll spend a few minutes going through some of those questions and you can just knock them out of the park because they're second nature to you. Well, the first one we get is this confusion between Medicare and Medicaid. I think there's similar enough sounding words that people get them mixed up, and I'll have a client say, oh yeah, once I'm 65, I get Medicaid. And I had this weird choice of, do I want to correct them and sound like a jerk, or do I just let them go with it? And I know what they mean, so we'll just address that, get back to financial planning. So let's start there. Medicare versus Medicaid. I'll let you say it. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely let them go with it, because they sound so similar. But Medicare is senior health insurance. So anyone that's worked and paid 10 years of taxes or has a spouse that has, they become eligible for Medicare when they turn 65. Medicare's government provided health insurance for seniors. Medicaid is for low income, low asset, or children with disabilities, that's run through the state. So Medicare is a federal program. Nearly all Americans are eligible for it when they turn 65. Medicaid is state-run health insurance. Now, it's funded by the federal government to each state, but it's state-run health insurance for lower income, low asset individuals. Some people can have both. Some people can be called dual eligible Medicare. They're 65, but they also have Medicaid to help cover some of the Medicare costs.
Yeah, got it. And this isn't really relevant to what you do, or at least what I think you do, but a lot of times when we get to the later in stage life things and you're in a nursing home and then you spend down your assets for Medicaid, and then Medicaid kicks in to pick up that nursing home bill. So then you're on Medicare and Medicaid, correct?
Yes, because Medicare does cover skilled care, but only up to 100 days. So once you exhaust Medicare skilled care benefits, either you're self-paying it, you have a long-term care insurance plan helping pay for it, or you are spending down all of your assets so that Medicaid can pay for the skilled nursing.
It's all those things that nobody wants to think about in life.
But they have to.
Similar to your experience selling life insurance. Nobody wants to talk about it, but eventually you have to.
Definitely.
Another common question we get is, let's say, Colin, I'm retiring, I'm 60 years old. I've been on my employer-sponsored health insurance all this time, and my spouse is still working. So can I go on my wife's insurance until age 65? And then should I go over to Medicare, or should I stay on my wife's insurance, or how does all that work?
That's a great question. Absolutely. You can go on your spouse's health insurance plan. And in most cases, that's going to make the most sense before you're Medicare eligible, because otherwise you're going out to the marketplace and you're purchasing a health insurance plan at age 60. And I work with clients in that situation, and I don't have a good solution for them all the time. It's, hey, you might pay $1,200 a month in premiums, and the plan offering has a $6,000 deductible. Now, once you get to Medicare, all of that changes, but typically jump on your spouse's health plan. And then when you turn 65, we'll compare. Should you stay on your spouse's health care coverage, or might Medicare be a better solution? And that's one thing that surprises a lot of people. I have a 64-year-olds coming to me all the time, and they know they have to confront Medicare, and they have heard from a friend or a family member or another colleague, if you don't enroll in Medicare right when you turn 65, you'll be penalized for the rest of your life. And that's just not the case. As long as you have some sort of employer-based coverage, whether that's your own employment or through your spouse's employment, the rule of thumb is if there's over 20 employees at that company, you can either choose to take Medicare when you turn 65, or defer Medicare until retirement, and then we can activate Medicare on the back end. No penalties, no delays in coverage. I see a wave of relief come across clients' face in that scenario. They don't have to confront the Medicare plan choices and all of these decisions right away. Now, most times when you're 65, just take Medicare Part A. It's free. It will act as a placeholder for when you do retire or when your spouse retires, and then you have to take Medicare if you're 65 or above.
Okay. So if I'm 65 and I'm retired, my wife's still working, there's nothing wrong with staying in her plan. But then there's a 10% penalty if I don't get onto Medicare when she retires. How does that work?
Yeah. Once you lose that coverage, there would be a 10% penalty that's based on the Medicare premium of $185 a month to the government. You get a 10% penalty. That's not the bigger reason why you should be enrolling in Medicare when you're losing that group coverage. The bigger reason is you'll have to go without coverage until the next Medicare enrollment period. So if you retire, that creates what's called like a special election period to activate Medicare. Losing group coverage creates a special election where it could be April and we're outside of the Medicare enrollment period, but you can still activate Medicare May 1st using that special election period because you've lost employer-based coverage.
Okay, so we had to avoid the gap in coverage. That makes sense.
Yeah, because if you lose group coverage, number one, Cobra is not a good option because the rule is Medicare is always primary to Cobra. So if you're 65 or older and you're Medicare eligible, and let's say you lose your employer coverage, but you just take Cobra, Cobra will take your premiums. The insurance company will take your premiums. But come claim time, if they audit that claim, they say, wait a second, you're over 65, Medicare should be primary. We're not paying anything that Medicare would have paid.
Yeah.
And that's also true if someone works for a company under 20 employees and they're 65. They should really be enrolling in Medicare right when they turn 65 because under 20 employees, the insurance company can deny their claim saying Medicare should have been primary. But anyone with over 20 employees and they have employer coverage, they can just defer Medicare. Again, most times take Part A as a placeholder and we'll activate the rest when you're coming up on retirement.
So the insurance company will take the premium. That's good to know.
Of course. Yeah. And they're going to say, these are the rules. We didn't, it is what it is.
Yeah. They'll take your money. There's nothing wrong with that. Trying to think of a couple other common questions we get. So that's a big one. The other one that we get is just around the IRMA tables, which I think this is an area of Medicare planning that I'm very familiar with because it's from a tax standpoint. It's a lot of the conversation we deal with clients. But for those of you listening that don't know, the Medicare premium is, I think, the only type of insurance that I've come across where the premium is based on your income. So if you think of like auto insurance is based on your driving history and some other factors, even life insurance is based on your health history and your age. And then it comes along Medicare and it's solely based on how much income you had 2 years prior. I guess I'll throw it over to you. Are there any misconceptions that you want to highlight with that? Or maybe we should touch the basics.
It can be shocking because the baseline Medicare rate is $185 per month per person. That's for anyone whose income 2 years ago, adjusted gross income was under $212,000 as a couple, joint income, or $106,000 as an individual. $185 a month, not so bad. The highest income earners could pay as much as $700 a month per person based on their income. So it can be really shocking, and it can be another reason why a high income earner would never want to take Medicare Part B. That's what you pay for. They would never take Medicare Part B and have their employer coverage in place because now you have duplicate coverage, but your employer's the primary coverage, and all of a sudden you're getting billed $700 a month from the government. Now, the common scenario would be, though, you had mentioned Social Security, they pull your adjusted gross income from 2 years ago to set your Medicare premium. So when we have a client enrolling in Medicare Part B in 2025, that's going to be, their premium is based on their income from 2023. But let's take the common scenario. Someone's working past age 65, or they have a spouse that's working. They've been covered under their employer plan. Now either them or their spouse is retiring and they have to go to Medicare. So 2 years ago, their income was $400,000. They're going to pay more in Medicare premiums based on that income. But now that they're retiring, their income's reducing significantly. We want to appeal that right away. If we do nothing, Social Security is going to look at their income from 2 years ago, charge them a significantly higher premium. But if we appeal, we let the government know, look, I'm retired now. I was making $400,000 when either myself or my spouse was working, but now I'm retired. We're living off of Social Security, investment income, dividends, things like that. My income's only going to be $200,000 in retirement. We can appeal, and Social Security will bring them back down to the baseline Medicare rate in that scenario of $185 per person.
Okay, let's get another appeal process. So what about the scenario we see around here? I'm in Rochester, New York. The cost of living is probably half of what it is in Philly where you are. So a lot of retirees, when I give this presentation, we talk about the IRMA tables, they take a look at the tables and they're like, okay, I'm not spending $300,000 a year. That's just not, we don't live that lifestyle. There's not things to do here to spend money on. That's kind of a joke. But what we do see is people that have like that one-time expense in retirement. Either it's, I want to pay my mortgage off because I'm retired and somebody told me I should pay my mortgage off. So I pull out $150,000 of income that year and I stack that on top of my already $150,000. So now I've got $300,000 of income for this 1 year. And then 2 years later, they get a letter saying that their IRMA premium's gone up. In that situation, are they able to appeal, or are they stuck paying that premium for?
Nothing we can do about that. That just is, you took money out of your taxable account, and that's ordinary income. So we can't appeal that. We also can't appeal Roth conversions. Roth conversions can spike a client's income, and it's not that you shouldn't be doing a Roth conversion, but your client should understand, hey, this can increase your Medicare premiums for 1 year. It will go back down unless you're doing multi-year Roth conversions. It will go back down. It's still part of your financial plan. It still fits with everything that you're doing for them. But you don't want your clients coming back 2 years later and saying, what did you do? Now my Medicare premium is double or triple. If it still fits in their financial plan, great. They should just know that it will spike their premiums for a year. Because each year, Social Security will do that 2-year look back. So in 2026, Social Security is going to pull everyone who's on Medicare's income and readjust their premiums based on their income from 2024, 2027, 2025. Some other things that people can appeal for would be maybe their spouse passes away and their spouse had the income. And now without the spouse's income, their income is going to be reducing significantly. That's a reason to appeal. A work reduction. Maybe your client doesn't want to fully retire. They want to go part-time. And that would also mean a reduction in income. You can appeal for that. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Divorce even. You are filing taxes jointly. Now you're divorced, filing taxes individually. Your income's lower. That would be one reason. And then a marriage. So you get married to someone and they're going to use joint income versus your individual income. Like the threshold for an individual is $106,000. The threshold for a couple to be penalized or have those IRMA charges is $212,000. If your income jointly is lower than those thresholds, appeal it.
So if you file separately, can you get around that? A different scenario, but if you're married, can you file separate?
If you file separately, they look at you just as like an individual, and $106,000 is the income threshold.
Okay, so if my wife had $1 million of income and I had 0, we could file separately, and I would be at that 185 still, and she would be at the 700 or whatever.
Correct.
All right, I'll keep that in mind for when I marry Taylor Swift. I think not now. She's not going to this version of me, but by the time I'm 65.
Yeah, he likes beards and good-looking guys, so you just got to beat out Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I could take Travis Kelce, but I don't want that recorded in too many places on the internet. I get upset. But all right, we're getting towards the end of our time here, so I want to give you a chance. Is there anything else you want to make sure we cover?
Yeah, I would say one thing to make sure that we cover is the difference of original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. So when people go on Medicare, they can take two directions. They can say, I'm going to take the government Medicare package. When I go to the doctors, I'm showing them my red, white, and blue Medicare A and B card. The hospital, the doctor is billing the government for Medicare. In that scenario, they also have something called a Medicare supplement plan, which pays the out-of-pocket costs under the government Medicare plan. It would really limit them this year to $257 in total medical bills that they can receive. They would also have a drug plan for their prescriptions. So that's called original Medicare, where the government is still the primary payer. And a lot of my clients like going that direction because you have open access to healthcare providers throughout the country. You don't have to worry about, is this doctor in network or out of network? You just go to the doctors of your choice. Also, the predictability. You're retired, you're on a fixed income. We know you're not going to get walloped with medical bills. Like I said, we can limit any medical bills to $257 for the year. regardless of how intensive of medical care they might have. But there's this other side of Medicare called Medicare Advantage. And this is Medicare that's run entirely through insurance companies, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, whoever it may be. And then that insurance company is now your Medicare health insurance provider. Instead of giving your doctors the red, white, and blue government-issued Medicare card, you give them your insurance card, whatever the insurance company you choose is. When you're turning 65 and beyond, you get inundated with advertisements, mailers, marketing, sales calls. There's even Medicare brokers that still knock on doors trying to convince you to buy their Medicare plan. But Medicare Advantage, the privatized version, because you're using one health insurance company to manage it all, there's some setbacks. Number one is you have now networks of doctors. If you take Blue Cross, you want to make sure you're staying within Blue Cross's network. And I'm not singling them out. I'm just using an common example. So you don't have that open access to healthcare providers anymore. You're in a limited network of doctors and hospitals. You also can receive higher medical bills. So some of these plans you could receive between $6,000 and $12,000 of medical bills, depending on what type of medical care you need. And then you do just go through things that we go through with health insurance. You need prior authorizations to get health care. You can get claims denied on Medicare Advantage from the insurance company. It's not that they're bad plans. It's not that no one should have a Medicare Advantage plan. But you need to understand what it actually is. You're foregoing the government Medicare package. You're transferring all of your Medicare coverage in with one insurance company who's now managing your care. And those plans are very low premium. You can get a $0 Medicare Advantage plan, which sounds great. You get your gym membership included and things like that. But when it comes time to actually use the healthcare piece, you can run into obstacles, doctors not being in network, out-of-pocket costs, claims denials, things like that. And my last point on that is it's really important to make the right decision from the start. Because when you choose original Medicare, when you're first going on Medicare Part B, you only get 6 months to pick up what's called a Medicare supplement plan to pay the gaps, basically to limit your out-of-pocket exposure to $257. You get 6 months to do that without medical underwriting, without pre-existing conditions causing a decline. So even if you're very healthy today and you think, let me take the $0 managed care Medicare Advantage plan and I'll change back in a few years, at that point, if you have a pre-existing condition, you won't be able to get back to original Medicare and purchase a supplemental plan due to pre-existing conditions. So very important that people understand some of these limitations and really make the right decision from the start. I'll close with one story if you have another minute.
Yeah, let's do a story.
So my parents both went on Medicare about 10 years ago. My dad has AFib. He's very healthy otherwise, but he has AFib. It was vital that from the start, we got him original Medicare and his supplemental plan within the first 6 months of starting Medicare, because had he taken Medicare Advantage, or had he just not known to purchase a Medicare supplement plan, he's permanently disqualified from purchasing that coverage, having been on Medicare now past the 6-month period. So when we first enrolled him in Medicare, we could pick any coverage that he wanted, regardless of pre-existing conditions. And thank God we did, because had he chosen the wrong path, he might be pigeonholed into that Medicare Advantage side, never be able to get back to the traditional Medicare where he can go to doctors, whether he's in the Philadelphia area or they spend 6 months of the year down in Florida. He has access to providers in both places, very low out-of-pocket cost. It was just really important for my parents that they chose the right path in the beginning. And that's how I treat all of our clients. It's what would I do for my own parents? And we make recommendations with that in mind.
Oh, good thing your parents knew somebody that knew his Medicare in and out.
I was brand new to it too, but we figured it out for him.
Good case study.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll cut it off there. Is there anything else that is pressing?
No, the only thing that I would say is if you're turning 65, work with a professional, vet a professional, whether that's myself or someone else local to you or someone that you trust who's going to give you every option and not sell you one way or another. Someone that can help you enroll in Medicare through the Social Security Administration. That can be very frustrating as a 65-year-old. Get help. Don't just try to figure it out yourself. You'll drive yourself crazy and maybe make a bad decision.
Yeah, those can be expensive mistakes too. So do it right the first time.
Yep.
But all right, Colin, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate your time.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Alexander Neri. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Alexander Neri or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Alexander Neri and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.